Chapter 1. The air was thick with the scent of mildew, an oppressive humidity that clung to the walls of the old estate like a shroud. I found myself drawn to the manor, ensnared by a curiosity that gnawed at my mind, a relentless whisper that beckoned me to explore its dilapidated depths. The locals spoke in hushed tones about the place, how it was a ruin, haunted by the shadows of its former glory. They warned of the tower that loomed against the sky, a dark sentinel that held secrets best left buried. As I approached, the creaking door swung open as if inviting me into its embrace. I stepped inside, the floorboards groaning beneath my weight, echoing through the silence like the cries of the damned. Dust danced in the sunlight that filtered through the grimy windows, casting eerie shadows that twisted and writhed like restless souls. "Do you feel it?" a voice whispered from the corner of the room, pulling me from my reverie. I turned to see an old woman hunched over, her gnarled hands weaving the air as if she were conducting a symphony of forgotten memories. "The tower calls to you, doesn't it? It has chosen you." "Chosen me?" I replied, the hair on the back of my neck prickling. "What do you mean?" She cackled, a sound that sent chills racing down my spine. "You'll find out soon enough. It has a way of revealing the truth, that tower." Her eyes, milky and clouded, seemed to penetrate the veil of my thoughts. Against my better judgment, I felt the urge to ascend the spiral staircase that wound up into the tower's depths. Each step was a journey into the unknown, each creak a reminder of the secrets that lay hidden above. As I climbed, the air grew colder, heavier, as if the very atmosphere was saturated with despair. At the top, I found a small room, the walls lined with peeling wallpaper that whispered tales of love and loss. In the center stood a bed, draped in tattered sheets that looked as if they had not been disturbed in decades. A chill coursed through me as I reached out to touch the fabric, and a surge of memories flooded my mind. Visions of a woman, frail and ghostly, her eyes wide with terror, trapped within these four walls. "Help me!" she shrieked, her voice echoing in my mind, reverberating through the chamber like a death knell. I stumbled back, heart racing, as the weight of her anguish pressed down on me like a vice. "Leave this place!" The old woman's voice echoed in my thoughts, a warning that clawed at my sanity. But I was drawn to the specter, to the truth behind her torment, an inexplicable urge to unravel the horrors that lay dormant in this room. Chapter 2. Days turned into nights, and nights into an abyss of hollow dreams. I was ensnared, unable to escape the pull of the tower, compelled to return each evening, to lose myself in the depths of its despair. The woman's cries echoed in my mind, a haunting refrain that guided my every step. "Help me," she begged, her voice a siren's call wrapped in sorrow. I began to piece together her story, fragments that drifted through my consciousness like autumn leaves caught in a storm. She had been a guest at the manor, a beautiful creature trapped in a gilded cage of wealth and privilege. But her heart was shackled by a love that could never be, a forbidden affair that ended in tragedy, leaving her spirit to wander the tower, eternally seeking solace that eluded her grasp. "Who did this to you?" I whispered one night, the room alive with the echoes of her grief. The shadows seemed to swirl, morphing into a vengeful presence that enveloped me. "Tell me." Suddenly, the temperature plummeted, and the walls began to pulse as if the room itself was alive. The woman's specter materialized before me, her translucent form shimmering like a mirage. "It was him," she rasped, pointing a trembling finger towards the door. "He took everything from me. He trapped me here." A name escaped her lips, a name that resonated with terror. Edward. My heart sank as I recognized the name, a notorious figure from the estate's past. A man whose cruelty was whispered about in the dark corners of the village. He had lured her to the manor, promising a life of love, only to entrap her in a web of deceit. "What happened to him?" I asked, trembling as the weight of her pain pressed against my chest. "He is still here," she whispered, her eyes wide with dread. "He cannot leave, and neither can I." Chapter 3. The night grew dark, an inky blackness that devoured the last remnants of daylight. I could feel the malevolence of the tower wrapping around me, constricting like a serpent ready to strike. I had to know the truth, to confront the darkness that lingered in the shadows. My pulse quickened as I descended the staircase, each step echoing like a countdown to my doom. In the hall, I stumbled upon the remnants of Edward's life, photographs yellowed with age, a diary filled with manic ramblings detailing his obsession with the woman he had destroyed. "I will keep her forever," he had scrawled, ink smeared with madness. His twisted love had morphed into something grotesque, a deranged fixation that had ultimately led to his demise. As I pieced together the past, the air grew thick with despair. It was then that I felt a presence, a dark energy that crawled along my skin, whispering promises of power and vengeance. Edward was still there, lurking within the tower, feeding off the anguish of the woman he had wronged. "Release me," she screamed, her voice resonating within me, urging me to act. "You must end this." With a surge of adrenaline, I raced back to the tower, determination coursing through my veins. I had to confront Edward, to sever the ties that bound them both to this realm of suffering. But as I reached the top, the room shimmered with a dark luminescence, and Edward's figure materialized before me, a grotesque mockery of life. "Foolish child," he sneered, his voice a venomous hiss. "You cannot free her. She belongs to me." I could feel the weight of his malevolence crushing my spirit, but I stood firm. "No, I will break the cycle," I shouted, my voice echoing in defiance. The room erupted into chaos, the walls pulsating with rage as the two spirits clashed in a dance of desperation. I felt my body being torn apart, the very essence of my soul stretched thin as I fought to liberate the woman's spirit from the grip of her tormentor. "Help me," she cried, her voice a final plea that resonated deep within my core. With one last surge of strength, I reached into the void, grasping the threads of their connection and tearing them apart. The room trembled, and with a final scream, the darkness erupted into a blinding light. But as the brilliance consumed me, a chilling realization settled in my gut. I had freed her, but in doing so, I had become trapped within the tower. The very walls that had held her captive now closing around me like a vice. As the light faded, I found myself standing in the center of the room, her anguished cries echoing in my ears. I had become the new prisoner, the darkness now my eternal companion. The tower had claimed me, and in that moment, I understood the true horror of my actions. I was the monster now, trapped in the very room that had witnessed so much pain, my cries lost in the abyss. Outside, the world continued to turn, blissfully unaware of the horrors that dwelled within the tower's walls, where hope was but a fleeting memory, and despair reigned supreme. The air grew still, the shadows thickening, and all that remained was the echo of my own screams, swallowed by the darkness I had unleashed.